nestled in the heart of the countryside. There's a charming little village called Meadowbrook, where cobblestone paths wind through fields of gold and cottages nestle under whispering willows. In one of these cozy cottages lived Mrs. Gable, a woman whose heart was as warm as the apple pies she baked every Sunday. But this story isn't just about Mrs. Gable, it's also about a very special visitor. Every autumn, as the leaves turned to fiery shades of crimson and gold, a sleek black cat with brilliant emerald green eyes would appear on Mrs. Gable's doorstep. His name was Whiskers, and he was no ordinary cat. He was curious, clever, and had a particular fondness for the sweet, comforting scents that drifted from Mrs. Gable's kitchen. One crisp morning, Whiskers sat perched on the windowsill, watching Mrs. Gable with intense focus. She was bustling about, her cheeks rosy from the cool air. "Well, hello there, Whiskers," she said with a chuckle, her voice as gentle as a lullaby. "It seems the smell of autumn has brought you back. Today, my dear friend, we have a very special project. We are going to make the most delicious pumpkin jam you've ever tasted." Whiskers's ears perked up, and he let out a soft, inquisitive meow. Pumpkin jam. He'd heard of strawberry and raspberry, but pumpkin, this sounded like an adventure. Mrs. Gable smiled, seeming to understand his curiosity perfectly. "But first things first," she announced, tying her apron. "We can't make pumpkin jam without the perfect pumpkins, can we? And I know just the place to find them." She grabbed a large wicker basket and her car keys from a hook by the door. "Come on, Whiskers, let's go for a ride in Old Bessie." Old Bessie was Mrs. Gable's pride and joy, vintage blue car that chugged and sputtered, but was as reliable as the sunrise. Whiskers leaped gracefully from the windowsill and trotted after her, his tail held high with excitement. The journey in Old Bessie was a treat in itself. They rumbled down winding country lanes, past ancient oak trees and fields where sheep grazed peacefully. Whiskers sat on the passenger seat, his nose twitching as he took in all the new sights and smells. The air was filled with the earthy scent of fallen leaves and the distant aroma of wood smoke. They soon arrived at a sprawling garden that belonged to an old friend of Mrs. Gable's, a kind-hearted man named Mr. Fitzwilliam. His garden was a wonderland of autumn vegetables, but the real stars of the show were the pumpkins. There were pumpkins of all shapes and sizes, from tiny round ones to giant plump globes, all glowing like orange lanterns in the morning sun. Mr. Fitzwilliam greeted them with a hearty laugh. "Ah, Eleanor, and you've brought your little shadow with you. Here for my famous pumpkins, I presume." Mrs. Gable smiled warmly. "Of course, Arthur. Only the best for my pumpkin jam." Whiskers, feeling brave, rubbed against Mr. Fitzwilliam's leg, purring loudly. Together, they wandered through the pumpkin patch. Mrs. Gable carefully inspected each one, tapping them gently and checking their color. "We need pumpkins that are sweet and firm," she explained to Whiskers, who followed her every move. "Not too big, not too small. Just right." After careful consideration, she selected 3 beautiful, medium-sized pumpkins. Mr. Fitzwilliam helped her carry them to old Bessie, and with a wave of thanks, they were on their way back to the cottage, their precious cargo safely stowed in the back. Back in Mrs. Gable's sunlit kitchen, the real magic was about to begin. The room was cozy and filled with the comforting scent of dried herbs and cinnamon. Mrs. Gable washed the pumpkins and, with a practiced hand, carefully cut them into large pieces. Whiskers watched from his favorite spot on a plush rug, his green eyes wide with anticipation. "Now, the first step is to get all our ingredients ready," Mrs. Gable said, more to herself than to Whiskers, but he listened intently anyway. She gathered everything on the large wooden countertop: a bag of light brown sugar, a plump orange, a fragrant cinnamon stick, and a carton of orange juice. She placed a large heavy-bottomed saucepan on the stove. Into the pan went the pumpkin pieces, followed by a generous scoop of light brown sugar. Next, she used a peeler to create long, fragrant strips of orange peel, which she added to the pot along with the whole cinnamon stick. Finally, she poured in the vibrant orange juice. "There," she said, giving the mixture a thorough stir with a wooden spoon. "All the flavors need to get to know each other." She turned the stove to medium-high heat. Whiskers crept closer, drawn by the sweet and spicy aroma that was beginning to fill the air. Soon, the mixture started to bubble and hiss, and the kitchen was filled with a scent so wonderful it made Whiskers's whiskers twitch. As it began to boil, Mrs. Gable reduced the heat to a gentle simmer. "Patience is a key ingredient in any good recipe, my little friend," she whispered, patting Whiskers's head. For about 25 minutes, the pumpkin cooked, softening and absorbing all the delicious flavors of the orange and cinnamon. The scent was intoxicating, a perfect blend of sweet pumpkin, zesty citrus, and warm spice. It was the very essence of autumn in a pot. Mrs. Gable occasionally stirred the pot, humming a cheerful tune. Once the pumpkin was perfectly tender, she turned off the heat. Using a pair of tongs, she carefully fished out the strips of orange peel and the cinnamon stick. "Their work here is done," she explained to Whiskers, who was now sitting right at her feet, captivated. Now came the exciting part. Mrs. Gable took out her hand blender. With a worry sound, she began to blend the soft pumpkin pieces right in the saucepan. In moments, the chunky mixture was transformed into a smooth, velvety puree, the color of a beautiful autumn sunset. The texture was perfect, thick, rich, and utterly irresistible. But they weren't finished just yet. "Just a little longer," Mrs. Gable murmured, placing the pan back on the stove over very low heat. "This is where the jam truly becomes jam." For another 20 minutes, she let it simmer gently, stirring it every now and then to make sure it didn't stick to the bottom. Whiskers watched as the puree slowly thickened, its surface bubbling lazily. The color deepened and the consistency became rich and glossy. Finally, Mrs. Gable dipped her spoon into the pan and lifted it out. The jam clung to the spoon, thick and glorious. "Perfect," she declared with a satisfied smile, turning off the heat. The kitchen was quiet now, save for the contented purring of a certain black cat. The final step was to preserve their creation. Mrs. Gable had a row of clean, sparkling glass jars ready on the counter. Carefully, she ladled the hot, fragrant pumpkin jam into each jar, filling them to the brim. The warm orange jam looked beautiful against the clear glass. She sealed them tightly and left them on the counter to cool completely. Once cooled, the jars of jam would be stored in the fridge, ready to be spread on warm toast, swirled into yogurt, or enjoyed straight from the spoon. Mrs. Gable took a tiny bit of the cooled jam on a saucer and placed it on the floor for her little helper. Whiskers sniffed it cautiously, then licked. His eyes widened, and he began to lap it up eagerly. The sweet, spicy flavor was unlike anything he'd ever tasted. He purred louder than ever before, a rumbling sound of pure happiness. Mrs. Gable laughed, her eyes twinkling. "I think we have a fan," she said, as the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the kitchen floor. Mrs. Gable and Whiskers sat together, enjoying the peaceful end to a perfect autumn day, their hearts and home filled with the sweet success of their pumpkin jam adventure. I hope you enjoyed this little baking story with Whiskers and Mrs. Gable. There's something truly magical about creating things together in the kitchen. If you loved our cozy autumn tale, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming stories. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.